The morning sun cast long shadows across the training grounds at Marine Corps Base Quantico as Staff Sergeant Elena Rodriguez adjusted her rifle scope for the 100th time that week. The familiar weight of the M40A5 sniper rifle felt different in her hands today, heavier somehow, as if the weapon itself carried the burden of her recent failures. 3 weeks had passed since the incident that nearly ended her career. 3 weeks since she missed a shot that should have been routine for someone of her caliber. The target had been stationary, the wind conditions perfect, the distance well within her confirmed kill range. Yet somehow, inexplicably, the bullet had sailed wide, embedding itself harmlessly in the dirt berm behind the practice target. Elena had been a Marine sniper for 8 years, one of only a handful of women to complete the grueling Scout Sniper Basic course. She had earned her place through sheer determination, outperforming many of her male counterparts during the intense 13-week program. The instructors had initially been skeptical of her small frame and quiet demeanor, but she quickly proved that precision shooting had nothing to do with size or volume. Her reputation had been built on consistency and accuracy. During her first deployment in Afghanistan, she had recorded 43 confirmed kills, each one a testament to her skill and training. Fellow Marines nicknamed her Ghost for her ability to remain invisible in the most challenging terrain while delivering lethal shots from impossible distances. She had saved countless lives, eliminated high-value targets, and earned the respect of every unit she had worked with. But everything changed 3 weeks ago during what should have been a routine training exercise. The scenario was designed to simulate real combat conditions, with multiple targets at varying distances and environmental factors that tested even experienced snipers. Elena had been assigned to eliminate 3 insurgent leaders who were supposedly meeting in a compound approximately 800 meters from her position. The first target appeared in her scope at exactly 0800 hours, just as the intelligence brief had predicted. A middle-aged man in traditional Afghan clothing stepped onto a balcony, pausing to scan the surrounding area. Elena controlled her breathing, felt her heartbeat slow, and squeezed the trigger with the same smooth motion she had performed thousands of times before. The shot missed by 6 inches. The training round struck the wall beside the target, sending concrete dust into the air. Elena immediately cycled the bolt, chambering another round, but the target had already disappeared back into the building. She had blown her first opportunity, something that had never happened during a live exercise. Her spotter, Corporal James Mitchell, remained silent beside her. He had worked with Elena for 2 years and had never seen her miss a shot under controlled conditions. Through his spotting scope, he could see the impact crater where her bullet had struck. The miss was clean, no external factors to explain the failure. The second target emerged 20 minutes later, this time from a different building. Elena had used the intervening time to check her equipment, verify her scope settings, and run through her mental checklist. Everything appeared normal. The rifle was properly zeroed, the ammunition was standard match grade, and the environmental conditions were actually better than when she had taken her first shot. This time, the target moved more quickly, crossing an open courtyard in what the scenario designers had calculated would be a 7-second window. Elena tracked him smoothly, leading the target appropriately for the distance and movement speed. At the moment of optimal opportunity, she squeezed the trigger. Another miss. This bullet passed behind the target, striking the ground where he would have been if Elena had failed to account for his movement. It was a mistake a rookie might make, not an experienced sniper with combat experience. The target completed his crossing and disappeared into another building, leaving Elena staring through her scope at empty space. Corporal Mitchell finally spoke, his voice carefully neutral. "Ma'am, maybe we should take a break and check the rifle." Elena knew the rifle was fine. She could feel it in the way the weapon responded to her touch, in the familiar recoil pattern, in the smooth action of the bolt. The problem was not mechanical. It was something else entirely, something she could not identify or understand. The third target never appeared. The exercise concluded with Elena having failed to eliminate any of the assigned objectives, a result that would normally result in a failed score and mandatory retraining. But Elena was not a normal sniper student. She was an instructor, responsible for training the next generation of Marine marksmen. Her failure reflected not just on her own abilities, but on the entire sniper program. Major Robert Chun, the officer in charge of sniper training, called Elena to his office immediately after the exercise. He was a fair, but demanding leader who had worked his way up through the ranks after serving multiple combat deployments as a sniper himself. Elena had always respected his direct approach and his commitment to maintaining the highest standards for the program. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, he began, settling behind his desk with Elena's training file open before him. I've reviewed your performance from this morning's exercise. This is highly unusual for you. Elena stood at attention, her eyes fixed on a point above the major's head. Yes, sir. I have no excuse for my performance. I'm not looking for excuses, Major Chen replied. I'm looking for explanations. You've been one of our most reliable instructors for 3 years. Your students consistently achieve the highest scores in the program. Your own shooting record is virtually flawless. So what happened out there? Elena had been asking herself the same question since the moment her first shot went wide. She had mentally reviewed every aspect of her shooting technique, analyzed every variable that could have affected her accuracy, and examined her equipment with microscopic attention to detail. Nothing provided an answer. I honestly don't know, sir, she admitted. Everything felt normal. My equipment checked out. The conditions were ideal. I just missed. Major Chen leaned back in his chair, studying Elena's face for any sign of the stress or personal problems that sometimes affected even the most professional Marines. He had seen excellent snipers suddenly lose their edge due to family issues, financial problems, or the cumulative stress of combat deployments. Elena showed none of the typical warning signs, but something was clearly wrong. I'm assigning you to remedial training, he decided. Work with Gunnery Sergeant Patterson on the fundamentals. Take as much time as you need to get your confidence back. We can't have instructors missing shots in front of students. Elena accepted the assignment without protest, though the word remedial stung more than she cared to admit. Gunnery Sergeant Patterson was the chief instructor for the basic marksmanship course, responsible for teaching new recruits how to handle a rifle safely and accurately. It was several steps below her current position and a clear indication of how seriously the command viewed her recent failures. Over the following days, Elena threw herself into the remedial training with the same intensity she had applied to everything else in her Marine career. She spent hours on the range, firing thousands of practice rounds at targets ranging from 100 to 1,000 meters. She worked on breathing techniques, trigger control, and sight alignment as if she were a complete beginner learning to shoot for the first time. Initially, the extra practice seemed to help. Her groups tightened, her consistency improved, and she began to feel the familiar confidence that had always been her foundation as a sniper. Gunnery Sergeant Patterson, a gruff veteran with 22 years of service, worked patiently with her, offering suggestions and observations without treating her like a failure. The fundamentals are everything, he reminded her during one afternoon session. Doesn't matter how many confirmed kills you have or how many students you've trained. If you lose the fundamentals, you lose everything else. Elena nodded, appreciating his straightforward approach. She had always prided herself on maintaining perfect shooting fundamentals, but perhaps something had gradually shifted in her technique without her realizing it. The remedial training was an opportunity to rebuild her skills from the ground up and identify any problems that had crept into her shooting. But as the days passed, a troubling pattern began to emerge. Elena could perform perfectly during practice sessions, placing shot after shot exactly where she intended on stationary targets at known distances. Her accuracy was actually better than it had been before the failed exercise, and her confidence began to return. The problem arose only during scenario-based training that simulated combat conditions. Whenever the pressure increased, whenever she was required to make quick decisions and engage multiple targets under time constraints, her accuracy would inexplicably deteriorate. Shots that should have been automatic for someone of her experience would miss by inches or feet, leaving her frustrated and confused. After 2 weeks of remedial training, Major Chen called Elena back to his office. Her practice scores were excellent, but her scenario performance remained inconsistent. The Major had been reviewing her complete service record, looking for any clues that might explain her sudden difficulty with pressure situations. Staff Sergeant, I've been thinking about your situation, he began. Your basic marksmanship skills are clearly intact. Your knowledge of ballistics and field craft remains excellent. But something is interfering with your performance when the stakes are raised. Elena had reached the same conclusion but had no idea what to do about it. She had never experienced anything like this before and was beginning to question whether she was still capable of performing her duties as a sniper instructor. I want you to work with Dr. Sarah Williams, Major Chen continued. She's a sports psychologist who has experience with military personnel. Sometimes the mental aspects of shooting are just as important as the physical skills. The suggestion caught Elena off guard. She had always prided herself on mental toughness and had never considered that psychological factors might be affecting her shooting. In her mind, marksmanship was a purely technical skill that could be mastered through practice and discipline. Dr. Williams turned out to be a former competitive shooter herself, who understood the unique pressures faced by military snipers. During their first session, she explained how stress and pressure could affect even the most experienced marksmen in ways they might not recognize. The human brain processes stress in complex ways, she explained. Sometimes, a single failure can create doubt that undermines future performance. It becomes a cycle where fear of missing causes tension that actually increases the likelihood of missing. Elena was skeptical but willing to try anything that might help her regain her edge. Dr. Williams introduced her to visualization techniques, breathing exercises, and mental preparation strategies that were designed to maintain focus under pressure. The psychological training seemed to help initially. Elena felt more relaxed during scenario exercises and reported improved confidence in her shooting. But when it came time for her final evaluation before returning to instructor duties, the old problems returned with a vengeance. The evaluation scenario was designed to test every aspect of sniper skills: target identification, range estimation, environmental compensation, and precision shooting under time pressure. Elena would need to engage 3 targets at different ranges within a 15-minute window while dealing with changing light conditions and moderate wind. As she settled into her firing position, Elena felt the familiar weight of expectation. Major Chun was observing personally, along with several other instructors who would be evaluating her performance. The scenario would determine whether she could return to her teaching duties or would need additional training and evaluation. The first target appeared exactly on schedule, and Elena smoothly transitioned from observation to engagement. Her breathing was controlled, her sight picture was perfect, and her trigger squeeze was textbook smooth. The shot felt good leaving the barrel, and Elena was confident she had scored a hit. But, through her scope, she watched in disbelief as the bullet struck low and to the right, missing the target completely. The second shot, taken moments later with a hasty correction, also missed. By the time she managed to score a hit on the first target, the precious seconds had elapsed, and the second target was already moving across her field of view. The evaluation continued to deteriorate from there. Elena managed to hit the second target with her fourth shot, but completely missed the third target despite having 3 opportunities to engage. Her final score was the worst she had ever recorded in any training exercise, and the implications for her career were serious. That evening, Elena sat alone in her quarters, staring at the rifle that had been her constant companion for 8 years. For the first time since joining the Marines, she seriously questioned whether she had any future as a sniper. The weapon that had once felt like an extension of her body now seemed foreign and unreliable, though she knew the problem lay not with the rifle but with herself. The phone rang at 2100 hours, interrupting her brooding. Major Chin's voice was calm but serious when she answered. "Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, I need to see you in my office first thing tomorrow morning. We need to discuss your next assignment." Elena knew what that meant. Her time as a sniper instructor was likely over, and she would probably be reassigned to a different military occupational specialty. 8 years of specialized training and combat experience would be wasted, all because of a problem she could neither understand nor solve. As she prepared for what might be her final night as an active sniper, Elena reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. She remembered the pride she had felt when she first earned the title of Scout Sniper, the satisfaction of protecting her fellow Marines during combat deployments, and the fulfillment she had found in teaching others to master the demanding skills of precision shooting. All of that was now in jeopardy because of 3 missed shots that had somehow cascaded into a crisis of confidence that threatened to end her career. Tomorrow would bring either redemption or the end of everything she had worked to achieve in the Marines. Elena cleaned her rifle one more time, going through the familiar routine that had always brought her comfort. As she ran the cleaning rod through the barrel, she made a silent promise to herself. Regardless of what happened tomorrow, she would find a way to overcome this problem. She owed it to herself, to her fellow Marines, and to all the students who were counting on her to be the instructor they needed. The Marine Corps had taught her that failure was not an option, and she intended to prove that lesson true once again. Somehow, someway, she would find her way back to being the sniper she knew she could be. Outside her window, the lights of Quantico gradually dimmed as the base settled into its nighttime routine. Elena Rodriguez, Marine sniper and instructor, faced the greatest challenge of her military career with the same determination that had carried her through 8 years of service. Tomorrow would mark either the end of her journey or the beginning of her comeback. Major Chin's office felt smaller than usual when Elena reported for duty the next morning. The walls displayed the traditional collection of military awards, unit photographs, and Marine Corps memorabilia that decorated most offices at Quantico. But today they seemed to close in around her like silent witnesses to her professional downfall. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez reporting as ordered, sir, she announced, standing rigidly at attention despite the informal nature of the early morning meeting. Major Chin gestured for her to take a seat, his expression unreadable. Elena had served under enough officers to recognize when someone was about to deliver difficult news, and every instinct told her that her career as a sniper was about to end. I've made a decision about your situation, the major began, settling behind his desk with a thick folder that Elena recognized as her complete service record. But before I explain what happens next, I want you to understand something important. Elena braced herself for the announcement that she would be transferred to a different military occupational specialty, probably something far removed from the precision shooting that had defined her Marine Corps experience. Your problems are not unique, Major Chin continued, surprising her with the unexpected direction of his comments. Over the past 15 years, I've seen this exact same pattern affect some of our best snipers. Combat veterans with dozens of confirmed kills suddenly develop accuracy problems that seem to come from nowhere. The major opened Elena's folder and removed several documents that she could not see clearly from her position across the desk. The military has been studying this phenomenon for years, and we're finally beginning to understand what causes it and how to address it. Elena remained silent, uncertain where this conversation was heading but grateful that it was not beginning with news of her reassignment. What you're experiencing has a name, Major Chin explained. Military psychologists call it precision performance anxiety disorder, though most of us just refer to it as sniper's block. It typically affects experienced marksmen who have performed under extreme stress for extended periods. The explanation was both relieving and troubling. Elena was glad to learn that her problem had been encountered before and apparently had a solution, but she was also concerned about being diagnosed with any kind of psychological disorder that might affect her security clearance or future assignments. The condition usually develops after a sniper has been exposed to particularly intense combat situations or has been required to take difficult shots under extreme pressure. The major continued. The mind begins to overthink the shooting process, creating tension and doubt that interferes with the muscle memory and instinctive reactions that make expert marksmanship possible. Elena thought back to her last deployment in Afghanistan, trying to remember if there had been any particular incident that might have triggered the psychological response Major Chin was describing. Her final months in country had been intense, with her unit conducting daily operations against a sophisticated enemy that had adapted to American sniper tactics. There was one mission, she said slowly, remembering details she had tried to suppress. About 6 months ago, before I rotated back to Quantico, we were supporting a raid on a compound that intelligence believed was hosting a high-value target. Major Chin nodded encouragingly, recognizing that Elena was beginning to process experiences she might not have fully confronted before. The target turned out to be a family gathering, Elena continued, her voice becoming quieter as she recalled the mission. Children, elderly people, women preparing food. Our intelligence was completely wrong, but my unit leader ordered me to maintain overwatch position while the assault team sorted out the situation. The memory was vivid now, bringing back emotions she had pushed aside in order to continue functioning as a professional Marine. I had 3 different civilians in my scope at various times during the operation. A teenage boy who came outside to investigate the noise. An elderly man who appeared to be trying to protect the children. A woman who was probably someone's mother or grandmother. Major Chin listened without interruption, understanding that Elena was working through traumatic memories that she had not previously connected to her current shooting difficulties. I never took any shots, Elena emphasized, as if defending herself against accusations that existed only in her own mind. The rules of engagement were clear, and none of the civilians presented a threat. But for 45 minutes, I tracked human beings through my scope while my finger rested on the trigger of a rifle that could kill any of them instantly. The experience had been different from normal combat operations where Elena engaged armed combatants who posed a direct threat to American forces. During the compound raid, she had been forced to aim at innocent people while maintaining the readiness to shoot if circumstances changed. The psychological stress of that responsibility had been enormous. After that mission, I noticed that my shooting felt different, Elena admitted. Not worse necessarily, but more deliberate. I started thinking about each shot instead of just taking them. During firefights, I would hesitate for a split second before engaging targets, even when they were clearly enemy combatants. Major Chin made notes in Elena's file while she spoke, documenting details that would be important for the treatment program he had in mind. The good news is that Sniper's block is entirely treatable, he assured her. The Marine Corps has developed a specialized program to help experienced marksmen overcome this type of performance anxiety. You'll work with a team that includes psychologists, marksmanship instructors, and combat veterans who have successfully dealt with the same issues. Elena felt a surge of hope for the first time in weeks. The possibility that her career might not be over was almost too good to believe. The program is intensive, Major Chin warned. 6 weeks of combined psychological counseling and advanced marksmanship training. You'll work with Dr. Williams, whom you've already met, plus Gunnery Sergeant Martinez, who has specialized training in performance anxiety issues. Gunnery Sergeant Martinez was a legend at Quantico, a former Force Reconnaissance Marine who had transitioned into sniper instruction after a combat injury ended his deployment eligibility. Elena had always respected his reputation but had never worked with him directly. The program has a 93% success rate, Major Chin continued. Marines who complete it typically return to full duty with shooting skills that exceed their previous capabilities. But I need to be honest with you about what's required. Elena leaned forward, eager to understand exactly what she would need to do to save her career. You'll be temporarily removed from instructor duties and assigned to the remedial training company as a student, the major explained. That means you'll be working alongside Marines who are struggling with basic marksmanship skills, not teaching advanced sniper techniques. The prospect of being demoted to student status was humiliating, but Elena recognized that it was necessary if she wanted to overcome her current problems. You'll also need to be completely honest about your combat experiences, including details that you might prefer to keep private, Major Chin added. The psychological component of the program requires absolute candor about traumatic events and their emotional impact. Elena had always been a private person who preferred to handle problems independently rather than discussing them with others. The requirement to open up about her combat experiences would be challenging, but she was willing to do whatever was necessary. I understand, sir, she replied. When does the program begin? Monday morning, Major Chin answered. You'll report to Building 2847 at 0600 hours for your initial assessment. Bring your personal gear and be prepared to start over from the beginning. Elena spent the weekend preparing for what felt like a second enlistment in the Marine Corps. She reviewed the fundamentals of marksmanship as if she had never learned them before, knowing that the program would require her to rebuild her skills from the foundation up. Monday morning arrived with the crisp coolness of early autumn at Quantico. Elena reported to Building 2847 precisely at 0600, carrying the same gear she had used as a new recruit nearly a decade earlier. The building housed the remedial training company, where Marines who had failed initial marksmanship qualification received additional instruction before being allowed to continue their military occupational specialty training. Gunnery Sergeant Martinez was waiting when she arrived, along with 3 other Marines who appeared to be legitimate beginners struggling with basic shooting skills. Elena felt oddly out of place among the younger Marines, but Martinez treated all 4 students with the same professional courtesy. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here because shooting accurately is not optional in the Marine Corps, Martinez began his introductory briefing. Whether you're a new recruit learning for the first time or an experienced Marine relearning skills you've lost, the fundamentals remain the same. Elena appreciated his tactful approach to her situation. He acknowledged her experience without making her feel singled out among the genuine beginners. The first week of the program focused entirely on dry fire practice and mental preparation. Elena spent hours in a classroom learning about the psychological aspects of marksmanship, understanding how stress and trauma could interfere with the unconscious processes that made precision shooting possible. Dr. Williams conducted daily counseling sessions where Elena gradually opened up about her combat experiences, including the compound raid that had apparently triggered her current difficulties. The process was emotionally draining but also surprisingly cathartic as she finally confronted feelings she had suppressed for months. Trauma responses don't always manifest immediately, Dr. Williams explained during one session. Sometimes the mind processes difficult experiences gradually, and symptoms appear weeks or months after the triggering event. Elena was learning to recognize the subtle signs of stress that had been affecting her shooting without her conscious awareness. Muscle tension, altered breathing patterns, and unconscious hesitation were all contributing to her accuracy problems. The live fire training began in the second week, starting with basic rifle familiarization at point-blank range. Elena felt ridiculous firing at targets only 25 meters away, but Martinez insisted that everyone in the program had to progress through each step regardless of their previous experience. Ego is the enemy of improvement, he reminded the class daily. If you think you're too experienced for basic training, you're not ready to move forward. Gradually, Elena began to rediscover the unconscious confidence that had once made her one of the Marine Corps' most effective snipers. The combination of psychological counseling and methodical skills training was slowly rebuilding both her technical abilities and her mental approach to precision shooting. By the fourth week, she was engaging targets at 300 meters with the same accuracy she had demonstrated as a new sniper. More importantly, she was doing so without the conscious effort and self-doubt that had characterized her shooting for the past several months. The program included scenario-based training designed to simulate the stress of combat operations without the traumatic associations that had triggered Elena's original problems. Martinez and his team had developed exercises that gradually increased pressure levels while allowing students to build confidence through successful performance. During one memorable exercise, Elena was required to engage multiple targets while dealing with simulated artillery fire and radio communications that replicated the chaos of actual combat. For the first time in months, she performed the exercise without conscious thought, relying on the instinctive reactions and muscle memory that had served her so well during her combat deployments. Outstanding performance, Staff Sergeant Martinez commented after reviewing her scores. You're ready for the final evaluation. The final evaluation would determine whether Elena could return to instructor duties or would need additional training. Unlike her previous failed evaluation, this test would be conducted by instructors who understood her recent struggles and were specifically looking for evidence of improvement rather than perfection. Elena approached the final evaluation with cautious optimism. She had regained confidence in her shooting abilities and had learned valuable techniques for managing stress and maintaining focus under pressure. The 6 weeks of intensive training had been challenging but had clearly produced positive results. The evaluation scenario was similar to previous tests but included additional complexity designed to challenge even experienced snipers. Elena would need to engage 5 targets at ranges between 400 and 800 meters while dealing with changing wind conditions and time pressure. As she settled into her shooting position, Elena felt the familiar calmness that had once been her trademark. Her breathing was controlled, her mind was clear, and the rifle felt like a natural extension of her body. For the first time in months, she was genuinely confident in her ability to perform at the level expected of a Marine Corps sniper instructor. The first target appeared exactly on schedule, and Elena engaged smoothly and decisively. The bullet struck exactly where she had aimed, scoring a perfect hit that validated weeks of intensive retraining. The second and third targets followed quickly, and Elena engaged each one with the same confident precision. By the time the evaluation concluded, Elena had achieved a near-perfect score that exceeded even her pre-problem performance levels. More importantly, she had demonstrated the mental resilience and psychological preparation that would allow her to maintain her skills under future stress. "Welcome back, Staff Sergeant Rodriguez," Major Chen said when she reported to his office the following morning. "You're cleared to return to instructor duties effective immediately." Elena felt a profound sense of relief and accomplishment that went far beyond simply salvaging her career. The experience had taught her valuable lessons about the psychological aspects of performance that would make her a more effective instructor and a more complete Marine. But her real test would come during her first day back in the classroom, when she would face the students who were counting on her expertise to develop their own sniper skills. The true measure of her recovery would be her ability to pass on not just technical knowledge, but also the mental strength and resilience that every Marine sniper needed to succeed in combat. Elena's return to the instructor pool coincided with the beginning of a new Scout Sniper Basic course, the demanding 13-week program that transformed qualified Marines into precision marksmen capable of supporting infantry operations in any environment. 24 candidates had been selected from hundreds of applicants, each one representing the cream of their respective units. Standing before her new class on that first morning back, Elena felt the weight of responsibility that came with shaping the next generation of Marine snipers. These young Marines would soon deploy to combat zones where their skills might mean the difference between mission success and failure, between life and death for themselves and their fellow service members. "Good morning, Marines," she began, her voice carrying the authority earned through 8 years of sniper experience and recent hard-won wisdom about overcoming professional challenges. "Over the next 13 weeks, we're going to teach you to become invisible ghosts who can reach out and touch targets at distances that most people can't even see clearly." The students sat at rigid attention, their eyes focused on Elena with the intensity of Marines who understood they were beginning one of the most challenging programs the Corps had to offer. Most had spent months preparing physically and mentally for this opportunity, knowing that the washout rate exceeded 50%. Among the 24 students, 3 immediately caught Elena's attention. Lance Corporal David Kim was a former infantry machine gunner whose unit commander had recommended him for sniper training after he demonstrated exceptional marksmanship skills during urban combat operations in Iraq. His personnel file indicated steady performance and strong leadership potential, but also noted a tendency toward perfectionism that sometimes interfered with decision-making under pressure. Private First Class Maria Santos had the highest pre-course shooting scores Elena had ever seen from an incoming student. The 19-year-old from Texas had grown up hunting with her father and had won several civilian marksmanship competitions before enlisting in the Marines. Her challenge would be adapting her competitive shooting skills to the tactical requirements of military sniping. Sergeant Michael Thompson presented a different type of challenge. He was older than most students at 26, with previous experience as a reconnaissance Marine who had volunteered for sniper training after his enlistment contract was extended. Thompson had already served 2 combat deployments and brought valuable field experience, but he also carried the psychological weight that Elena now understood could interfere with precision performance. The first week of training focused on the fundamental skills that formed the foundation of all advanced sniper techniques. Students learned to properly zero their rifles, estimate ranges accurately, and compensate for environmental factors like wind and elevation. Elena found herself drawing on lessons from her recent remedial training program, emphasizing the mental aspects of marksmanship alongside the technical skills. "Shooting is 90% mental and 10% equipment," she told the class during one morning lecture. "The most expensive rifle in the world won't help you if your mind isn't properly prepared for the shot." The comment reflected her new understanding of how psychological factors could affect even experienced marksmen. Elena had always known that mental preparation was important, but her recent struggles had taught her just how devastating psychological interference could be. Lance Corporal Kim excelled during the classroom phases, but struggled when training moved to field conditions. His perfectionist tendencies led him to second-guess his initial instincts, causing delays that would be fatal during actual combat operations. Elena recognized similar patterns from her own recent difficulties and worked patiently to help Kim develop confidence in his abilities. "Trust your training," she advised him during one-on-one coaching sessions. "The fundamentals work when you let them work. Overthinking the process just introduces variables that reduce your accuracy." Private First Class Santos presented the opposite challenge. Her natural shooting ability was exceptional, but she had developed habits during competitive shooting that were inappropriate for military applications. Civilian marksmanship emphasized absolute precision under controlled conditions, while military sniping required quick, accurate shots under chaotic battlefield circumstances. Competitive shooting and combat shooting are completely different disciplines, Elena explained to Santos during remedial training. "In competition, you have unlimited time to achieve perfect conditions. In combat, you take the best shot available with the time and conditions you have." Sergeant Thompson was the most complex student Elena had encountered. His field experience gave him advantages in camouflage, observation, and tactical movement, but she noticed subtle signs of the performance anxiety that had nearly ended her own career. Thompson would perform excellently during practice, but showed decreased accuracy during scenario-based exercises that simulated combat stress. Elena decided to address Thompson's situation directly, drawing on her recent experience with similar problems. She requested a private meeting with him after a particularly frustrating training day where his scores had been significantly below his demonstrated capabilities. "Sergeant Thompson, I want to discuss something with you that might help your performance," she began, settling into the small office she used for individual counseling sessions with students. Thompson sat at attention, clearly expecting to receive criticism about his inconsistent shooting performance. I noticed that your accuracy decreases when we add stress factors to the training exercises, Elena continued. Your fundamentals are excellent, but something is interfering with your performance when the pressure increases. Thompson's expression suggested that Elena had identified something he had been reluctant to acknowledge. Have you experienced anything during your previous deployments that might be affecting your current performance? Elena asked, using the same direct approach that Dr. Williams had employed during her own counseling sessions. Thompson was quiet for a long moment before responding. There was an incident during my last deployment, he admitted. My team was conducting reconnaissance near Fallujah when we encountered an insurgent cell that had taken civilian hostages. Elena listened without interruption, recognizing the type of traumatic experience that could create lasting psychological effects. I was in position to take several shots that would have eliminated the insurgents, Thompson continued. But the hostages were so close that I was afraid of hitting them if I missed. While I hesitated, the insurgents executed 2 of the civilians and escaped. The incident was remarkably similar to Elena's own experience during the compound raid, where she had been forced to maintain potential shots on innocent people while dealing with uncertain intelligence and conflicting emotions. Those 2 people died because I didn't take shots I was capable of making, Thompson concluded. Ever since then, I second-guess myself whenever I'm under pressure. I start thinking about all the things that could go wrong instead of focusing on making the shot. Elena realized she was in a unique position to help Thompson overcome his difficulties. Her recent experience with performance anxiety gave her insights that few other instructors could provide. What you're describing is more common than you might think, she assured him. Combat veterans sometimes develop psychological responses to traumatic events that affect their performance months or years later. Elena explained the concepts she had learned during her own rehabilitation program, helping Thompson understand how stress and trauma could interfere with the unconscious processes that made expert marksmanship possible. The key is learning to trust your training and muscle memory, Elena continued. Your mind knows how to make the shot. Your job is to get out of its way and let your training take over. Over the following weeks, Elena worked individually with Thompson to help him develop mental preparation techniques that would allow him to perform consistently under pressure. The process required him to confront his feelings of guilt and responsibility regarding the Fallujah incident, emotions he had suppressed in order to continue functioning as a Marine. Meanwhile, Lance Corporal Kim was making steady progress in overcoming his perfectionist tendencies. Elena taught him breathing techniques and visualization exercises that helped him maintain confidence in his initial assessments and shooting decisions. Perfect is the enemy of good enough, she reminded him repeatedly. In combat, a good shot taken quickly is better than a perfect shot taken too late. Private First Class Santos was adapting well to military shooting requirements, though she occasionally reverted to competitive shooting habits during complex exercises. Elena worked patiently to help her understand the fundamental differences between civilian and military marksmanship. Your goal is not to win a trophy, Elena explained. Your goal is to eliminate threats and protect your fellow Marines. Speed and reliability are more important than absolute precision. As the course progressed through its middle weeks, Elena began incorporating lessons from her own recent rehabilitation into the standard curriculum. She emphasized the psychological aspects of marksmanship more than previous instructors had done, helping students understand how mental preparation could enhance or undermine their technical skills. The training included scenario-based exercises designed to simulate the stress and chaos of actual combat operations. Students had to engage targets while dealing with simulated artillery fire, radio communications, and time pressure that replicated battlefield conditions. During one memorable exercise, Thompson finally achieved a breakthrough in his performance anxiety. The scenario required him to engage multiple insurgent targets who were threatening civilian hostages, recreating the type of situation that had traumatized him during his previous deployment. Elena watched through binoculars as Thompson settled into his firing position and acquired his first target. Instead of hesitating as he had done consistently during previous exercises, he engaged smoothly and decisively, scoring a clean hit that eliminated the threat without endangering the simulated hostages. The second and third targets followed in rapid succession, with Thompson demonstrating the confident precision that his experience and training should have produced all along. When the exercise concluded, he had achieved one of the highest scores recorded by any student during that particular scenario. Outstanding performance, Sergeant Thompson, Elena commented during the after-action review. You trusted your training and executed the mission exactly as required. Thompson's success was particularly meaningful to Elena because it validated the psychological training techniques she had learned during her own rehabilitation. Helping him overcome performance anxiety confirmed her belief that mental preparation was just as important as technical skills for effective sniping. Lance Corporal Kim was also making significant progress, though his journey was more gradual. Elena continued working with him on decision-making under pressure, helping him understand that quick action based on solid fundamentals was preferable to delayed action seeking perfect conditions. During one training exercise, Kim demonstrated his improvement by engaging a series of time-sensitive targets without the hesitation that had previously characterized his performance. His accuracy remained high while his speed increased dramatically, achieving the balance between precision and urgency that effective combat sniping required. Private First Class Santos had successfully adapted her exceptional natural ability to military requirements, learning to make quick, accurate shots under field conditions rather than pursuing the absolute precision that competitive shooting emphasized. Her scores consistently ranked among the top 3 students in the class. As the course entered its final month, Elena felt a sense of professional satisfaction that went beyond simply completing another training cycle. She had successfully overcome her own performance difficulties and had used that experience to help her students develop not just technical skills, but also the mental resilience needed for combat effectiveness. The students had evolved from individual Marines with varying backgrounds into a cohesive group of developing snipers who supported and challenged each other. Elena could see the confidence and competence that would make them valuable assets to their future units. But the ultimate test was still ahead. The final evaluation would determine which students successfully completed the program and earned the title of Scout Sniper. Elena knew that her own performance as an instructor would be measured not just by the number of students who graduated, but by their subsequent performance during combat deployments. As she prepared her students for their final challenges, Elena reflected on how much she had learned during the past several months. Her own struggles with performance anxiety had initially seemed like a career-ending disaster, but they had ultimately made her a more complete instructor and a more effective Marine. The lessons she had learned about mental preparation and psychological resilience would benefit not just her current students, but every future sniper she would train. Her temporary failure had become the foundation for a deeper understanding of what made precision marksmen truly effective in combat situations. The final phase of training would test everything her students had learned, but Elena was confident they were prepared for the challenge. More importantly, she was confident in her own ability to guide them through whatever obstacles they might encounter. The final month of Scout Sniper Basic Course brought the most challenging and realistic training scenarios that Quantico had to offer. Students who had survived the physical conditioning, academic requirements, and basic marksmanship training now faced field exercises designed to test their ability to operate as complete sniper teams under conditions that closely replicated actual combat deployments. Elena's class of 24 Marines had been reduced to 18 students through natural attrition. 6 had been dropped for various reasons: academic failures, inability to meet marksmanship standards, medical issues, or simple inability to handle the psychological pressure of sniper training. Those who remained represented the most dedicated and capable candidates from the original group. The final training phase required students to work in 2-person teams, with one Marine serving as the sniper and the other as the spotter. These partnerships were crucial because real-world sniper operations depended on seamless cooperation between team members who had to function effectively under extreme stress. Elena paired Sergeant Thompson with Lance Corporal Kim, recognizing that Thompson's combat experience would complement Kim's analytical approach to problem-solving. The combination of Thompson's field knowledge and Kim's attention to detail could produce an exceptionally effective sniper team if they learned to trust each other's strengths. Private First Class Santos was partnered with Corporal Jake Morrison, a steady performer who had consistently ranked in the middle of the class throughout the course. Morrison's reliable competence would provide Santos with the support she needed while allowing her exceptional marksmanship skills to shine when precision shooting was required. The first major exercise simulated a deep reconnaissance mission in enemy territory. Each sniper team was assigned to infiltrate a designated area, establish a concealed observation post, and gather intelligence on enemy activities while remaining undetected for 48 hours. Elena monitored the exercise from the operations center, tracking each team's movements through electronic surveillance while evaluating their tactical decision-making and adherence to proper sniper protocols. The exercise was designed to test not just marksmanship skills, but also the fieldcraft, patience, and judgment that separated true snipers from ordinary marksmen. Thompson and Kim established their position in heavy vegetation overlooking the primary target area, demonstrating excellent camouflage discipline and communication procedures. Elena watched through remote cameras as they settled into their hide site and began the methodical process of cataloging enemy activities. "This is Tango 7. Thompson's voice crackled through the radio communication system. "We have eyes on the target compound. Multiple vehicles and personnel observed. Beginning detailed surveillance." Elena was pleased to hear the confidence in Thompson's voice. His recent breakthrough in overcoming performance anxiety had carried over into other aspects of his training, making him one of the most improved students in the class. Kim proved to be an excellent spotter, using his analytical skills to track patterns in enemy movements and identify key personnel who might be high-value targets. His perfectionist tendencies, which had initially been a liability, were now channeled into the meticulous observation and record-keeping that effective reconnaissance required. Santos and Morrison chose a different approach, establishing their position closer to the target area, but in a location that required more sophisticated camouflage techniques. Elena monitored their radio communications as they worked together to create a hide site that would be virtually invisible to enemy patrols. "Echo 4 in position," Santos reported. "We have clear lines of sight to all target buildings." Commencing surveillance operations. The exercise continued through the night and into the following day, testing the students' ability to maintain alertness and effectiveness despite fatigue, uncomfortable conditions, and the constant stress of potential discovery. Elena rotated through the monitoring stations, observing each team's performance and taking notes that would be crucial for their final evaluations. During the second morning of the exercise, Thompson and Kim were presented with their first engagement scenario. The exercise controllers introduced a high-value target who appeared in their surveillance area, requiring them to decide whether to engage or continue gathering intelligence. "Tango 7, we have a possible HVT in the compound courtyard," Kim reported, his voice steady despite the pressure of making a crucial tactical decision. "Request permission to engage." Elena watched the scenario unfold through multiple camera angles, evaluating how the team processed information and made decisions under pressure. Thompson was positioned behind the rifle while Kim served as spotter, providing range estimates and environmental corrections that would be crucial for an accurate shot. "Range 800 meters, Kim reported. "Wind 3 knots from the southwest. Target is stationary, good profile." Thompson settled behind his rifle, going through the mental preparation routine that Elena had taught him during their individual counseling sessions. Instead of the hesitation that had characterized his performance earlier in the course, he demonstrated calm confidence as he acquired the target and prepared to engage. "Tango 7 has a clean shot," Thompson reported, awaiting final authorization. The exercise controllers granted permission to engage, and Elena watched as Thompson smoothly transitioned from observation to engagement. His breathing was controlled, his body position was stable, and his trigger squeeze was textbook perfect. The simulated shot was recorded as a direct hit, eliminating the high-value target and achieving the primary mission objective. More importantly for Elena's evaluation, Thompson had performed under pressure without any sign of the performance anxiety that had previously interfered with his shooting. "Outstanding shot, Tango 7, the exercise controller confirmed. "Target eliminated, mission accomplished." Elena felt a surge of professional satisfaction as she watched Thompson and Kim execute their extraction procedures. The psychological training techniques she had incorporated into the curriculum were clearly producing positive results, not just for Thompson but for the entire class. Santos and Morrison faced a different challenge during their portion of the exercise. They were required to engage multiple targets in a time-sensitive scenario that simulated providing overwatch for an infantry assault. The situation required rapid target acquisition and engagement while maintaining the precision necessary to avoid fratricidal fire. "Echo 4, you have 3 targets in the compound," the exercise controller announced. "Friendly forces will begin their assault in 2 minutes. Eliminate hostile personnel before they can engage our troops." Santos positioned herself behind the rifle while Morrison served as spotter, calling out target locations and priorities based on the tactical situation. Elena monitored their communications, evaluating their teamwork and decision-making under the extreme time pressure. "First target, second floor window," 850 meters, Morrison reported. Enemy riflemen with clear shot at our assault team. Santos acquired the target smoothly, demonstrating the adaptation of her competitive shooting skills to military requirements. Her natural ability was evident in the speed with which she achieved proper sight alignment and triggered the shot. Target down, Morrison confirmed. Second target moving across the roof, 900 meters. The engagement continued with Santos systematically eliminating each threat while Morrison provided the detailed environmental corrections and target updates that made precision shooting possible at extended ranges. Their teamwork was seamless, reflecting hours of practice and the development of mutual trust between sniper and spotter. When the scenario concluded, Santos and Morrison had successfully eliminated all assigned targets within the time constraints while maintaining the accuracy standards required for close support operations. Elena noted their performance for inclusion in their final evaluations, pleased to see how well Santos had adapted her exceptional marksmanship abilities to military applications. The field exercise continued for the remainder of the 48-hour period, with each team facing additional scenarios designed to test different aspects of sniper operations. Students encountered situations requiring target identification under poor visibility conditions, range estimation without laser rangefinders, and shooting from awkward positions that simulated real-world tactical constraints. Throughout the exercise, Elena observed steady improvement in the performance of all 18 remaining students. The psychological training techniques she had incorporated into the curriculum were producing measurable results in terms of decision-making under pressure, confidence in engagement scenarios, and overall tactical effectiveness. When the field exercise concluded, Elena assembled her students for a comprehensive after-action review that would help them understand their performance and identify areas for continued improvement. The review process was crucial for reinforcing lessons learned and building confidence for the final evaluation phase. Over the past 48 hours, you've demonstrated that you understand the fundamental requirements of sniper operations, Elena began, addressing the group of exhausted but accomplished Marines. You've shown that you can work effectively as teams, make good tactical decisions under pressure, and engage targets accurately at extended ranges. Elena reviewed specific examples of excellent performance, highlighting instances where students had overcome challenging conditions or demonstrated exceptional teamwork. She also addressed areas where improvement was needed, providing constructive feedback that would help students refine their skills before the final evaluation. The final phase of your training will test everything you've learned during the past 12 weeks, Elena continued. You'll face scenarios that are deliberately more challenging than anything we've done so far, designed to push you beyond your comfort zones and ensure that you're truly prepared for combat operations. The final evaluation would span 5 days and include both written examinations and practical exercises that tested every aspect of sniper training. Students would be evaluated individually and as teams, with performance standards that reflected the exacting requirements of real-world sniper operations. Elena spent the following week preparing detailed evaluation scenarios based on her combat experience and the lessons she had learned during her own recent rehabilitation. The tests were designed to challenge students technically, tactically, and psychologically, ensuring that those who graduated were truly prepared for the responsibilities of serving as Marine Corps snipers. As she finalized the evaluation plans, Elena reflected on how much she had grown as an instructor during this training cycle. Her own experience with performance anxiety had given her insights that enhanced her ability to prepare students for the psychological challenges they would face during combat deployments. The integration of mental preparation techniques with traditional marksmanship training had produced visible improvements in student performance. Elena was confident that her graduates would be better prepared than previous classes to handle the stress and pressure of actual combat sniping. But the true test would come during the final evaluation, when students would face their ultimate challenge before earning the title of Scout Sniper. Elena knew that some of her best students might still fail if they could not demonstrate consistent performance under maximum pressure. As she prepared for the final week of training, Elena felt the same nervous anticipation that she imagined her students were experiencing. Their success would validate not just their own dedication and hard work, but also her effectiveness as an instructor and her recovery from the performance problems that had nearly ended her career. The next 5 days would determine which Marines earned the right to call themselves Scout Snipers, and which would return to their original military occupational specialties. Elena was confident in her students' preparation, but She also understood that final evaluations had a way of revealing weaknesses that previous training had not exposed. Thompson, Kim, Santos, Morrison, and their fellow students had all demonstrated the potential to become effective snipers. But potential meant nothing without the ability to perform when everything was on the line. The final evaluation would separate those who truly belonged in the sniper community from those who were almost good enough. Elena reviewed her evaluation criteria one final time, ensuring that every test was fair, realistic, and designed to identify the qualities that made Marines successful in actual combat operations. Her students deserved nothing less than the most thorough and demanding assessment that the Scout Sniper program could provide.